John,
Dean?
hello.
Hello.
So, all right. We did a bunch of videos last week, and from time to time, I would mention a concept called the second right answer.
Yes.
And I don't think I ever went into detail about the second right answer.
No, I'm anxious to find out about this second
So,
right answer thing.
probably more than any other concept, the second right answer, if you're in any sort of, especially if you're in any sort of creative or production kind of job, right? Copywriting, marketing, most marketing is not that creative, but anything where you make something, even coaches, honestly, these days, it's hard to think of anyone who doesn't have to use their brain a lot for any kind of at least white collar work, right? And actually for all kinds of work. But uh, it- it's enormously helpful. And I really wish I remembered what book or what author I came across this concept. I think it was when I was 15 or 16, called the second right answer. And it basically runs like this. You have a problem. A lot of us, here's a real life example, a lot of us, someone can walk up to you, like your spouse or your mom or someone can walk up and say, it's like, what's your opinion on such and such that's happening? And even if you've never really ever like sat down or like, directed your brain power to think what it is you think about something,
Mhm.
almost all of us can instantly come up with an opinion, right?
Of
And
course.
in my line of work, with writing and stuff, we refer to that as the crappy first draft. And no professional writer thinks that a crappy first draft is an indication that they're not a good writer. We just know that to get to something better, to get to something arresting, something visceral, something that someone will glance at as a headline and like absolutely be hooked and have to read it, right? Like, what are they talking about? What is that, right? We know that we have to get the first crappy draft out of the way. And for
Yep.
most people, most of us going through life, the first answer we come up with, even if it's a right answer, well, that's where we stop. Like people stop thinking about it once they think they've come up with the right answer, for any particular question or problem. But in every case, I've never come across where it's not true. In every case, there's a second right answer. It's not the opposite. Uh, Rory Sutherland has a saying where he says, the opposite of a good idea can also be a good idea. Like it's the second right answer is not an opposite to the idea that you come up with. It's that you can look at something and say, you know what? There's another better, more innovative, coming at it from a right angle. There's however you want to phrase it. There's another right answer beyond this one that I've come up with, no matter what you're working on. The problem is it almost never comes immediately. But if you accept that there's always a second right answer beyond the one that you have, and the one that you have, maybe you worked on it a really long time, maybe it took you months, maybe you've been tweaking at it forever. The second right answer doesn't care how long it took you to get to the first right answer. It's still further yet beyond the first right answer. But if you just accept, I promise this is true, you'll have to trust me. If you just accept there's a second right answer beyond the first one, you just tell yourself, this is the first right answer. I like it, but there's another one beyond this. A lot of the times, most of the time, you can just walk away and it will come to you, right? You'll be in the shower, you'll be shaving, you'll be taking a walk or a drive, and some random line from a podcast you listened to 4 years ago pops into your head and you realize that's the key to the second right answer and you immediately know. The nice part about the second right answer is it almost never takes time, or rather it almost never takes effort. It only takes time.
Yeah.
You don't have to work on it consciously. You just tell yourself, looking at the first right answer, there's a second right answer beyond this one. I'm going to come up with that at some point. And then you just let it go, right? And it might be hours, it might be years, but it will come to you. And almost everything that's awesome in our world was at some point somebody else's second right answer to a problem that they're working on. Right?
True.
I'm doing this and looking into a Sony A7 IV, which only came out around Christmas. It's brand new, right? At some point, someone decided, I love this camera, but it's probably had 250,000 patents for all the pieces that are in it and how they're put together.
Probably.
And every one of those was somebody's second right answer at some point to some problem they were working on, and then we all put it together. So I don't really have a lot to talk about unless you want to ask me any questions. But just to say, there's always a second right answer. When you get to a point where you've like figured something out, you can tell yourself, there's another answer beyond this. At some point, it's going to come to me, and it always, always does. The only thing is you can't like predict when it's going to happen.
That's very interesting because one thing that came to mind as we were talking about, or you were talking about this, is one thing that we used to do when I used to work in finance is that we would prompt people for the second right answer. So
Yes.
we could often get them to dig deeper, and usually it wasn't just a second right answer; it was a third, it was a fourth,
Yeah.
it
I
was a
didn't want to mention
myriad
that there's
of
a third and
steps.
a fourth and a
No,
fifth.
no, no. But I
People
think
say, that's ridiculous. I'll be spending all my time working on every problem and thinking through everything all the time. And actually, that's not true because I think tomorrow we're talking about the 3 things everybody outsources.
Yeah, but I think there's
But
value to this in the sense that,
yeah,
so oftentimes when knowing how this works and having gone through it with clients in the past, oftentimes, if I look at something that I think is the first right answer, I'll say, "Is there something more important than that?"
right.
That then kind of prompts the second right answer.
Yeah, you're trying to
Or
dig through to like deeper
or
motivations.
what's more
Yeah,
important than this to me at this moment or to this the way this relates.
yep.
And so I'm able to dig down through those fairly quickly. But it's extremely valuable, and it's funny how sometimes what you had as what you thought was the first right answer can be drastically different
Oh, yeah.
from what the end result
Yeah.
is.
The
So, yeah.
second right answer should not be just an iteration of the first one. The second right answer will come to you, and it's like, how did I never think of that before?
Yes.
Right? That's basically, what every good second right answer is.
Yes. It's almost
Yeah.
meant to be, the thing that sweeps over you and you
Yeah.
go,
And I
"How
will
did
tell you,
how
working
did
with
this elude me
clients,
for so long?"
and
Yes.
you talked about your clients, right? And teams of
Yeah.
pushing people. Uh, Generally speaking, entrepreneurs, when you come to them with a second right answer, they're like, yes, yes.
I can
Whereas if
see that.
if your client is like an employee at a large company, they almost never want a second right answer. The
Yeah,
first
right.
right answer is almost always more in line. There's almost no upside to taking risks
Yeah.
when you're in a corporate job, right? If it goes well, you don't really get the credit for it, and where relative to if it goes wrong, what could happen to you. So, in my experience, entrepreneurs, if you come to them and say, "Hey, I know that like we already went through this, but what do you think about that?" A lot of the time, they're like, "Yes, excellent," because they're right. If they're still an entrepreneur, they're in the phase of their life or their business's life where they've actually got a second right answer, and that's what they're trying to like pull into reality and creation in the world.
Right. You may have easily tripped into their second
Yeah,
into what their answer was or something that resonates with them.
right. So corporate buyers like iteration, and
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, and I don't mean small businesses because most small businesses are just as risk averse as corporate clients. And there's nothing wrong with being risk averse, and it absolutely is rational and makes sense to be risk averse, depending on your situation. But
Mhm.
for entrepreneurs that are already ready to run at a brick wall, they like second right answers. And everyone who writes or creates graphically or videos or whatever likes second right answers because that's what gets remembered and saved.
Yeah, I don't think engineers typically like second right answers.
No, no, they're not like, no, no.
Wait, let me do the split testing on that, and I'll figure out and see if I can
Yeah,
come up with that answer
right.
or
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, if it's in a
Yeah,
split test and you could say like, here's one, and then here's like a completely different one. Let's try them
then
out,
maybe.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah.
I write a lot of email campaigns. I love the split testing side of it. And the nice part about email campaigns is you have to push yourself to the second right answer as fast as you can, right? Because you don't have time to wait around months before you finally decide to send out the emails.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Or
Well,
sales
all right.
copy, for that matter.
That's all I had for today. How about you? Anything else?
It was good. No.
Tomorrow we're talking about the 3 types of outsourcing, which are everyone outsources labor, analysis, and insights. Everybody, from
Cool.
individuals up to governments and countries, and talk about what the differences in those are and where you and your career or your business, where you want to be in which category do you think that you can get the most value and give the most value.
Sounds good.
All right, tomorrow's Friday. Weekend's almost here.
Oh my gosh. Happy
Yeah,
Friday.
Happy Friday. Bye.